Hello and welcome to Dear IJay. This is where we add value to your spirit, body, mind, and soul. Please join us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and yes, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Remember, no pretense, no judgment. And this is how it works. We get letters from people about a problem or a challenge, and we share a summary of their writing, and we try to help them with suggestions. I am a trained psychologist, and combined with human experience, I hope to be of help. Now, let's go there. Well, we are reading this letter from, I don't know if people are using there, it doesn't really matter anyways, the story that matters. So, this is, wait a minute, okay. We have this letter, I'm just, I read this before I get here. We have this letter from Angela. It says, Dear IJ, I need your help. I do not want to get married. The thought of it is terrifying. First, my parents' marriage is very abusive. They still fight, though in their 60s. They always are in competition with each other. I don't see love, I see strife, tolerance, and violence. They both have scars from physical fights. My elder brother went to jail once in the UK for domestic violence, and I think my siblings and I have normalized cycles of mental, verbal, and physical abuse. Now, my fear is that my marriage may end up like my parents. I have a friend who is in a relationship. The way she manages her relationship is different from the way I think relationships ought to be handled. She seems to be very calm, very loving, and peace-loving. And my idea of a relationship is a man I can antagonize, fight with, argue with all the time, and have sarcastic communication with as many times as possible. I'm 32 and already I know I am not interested in marriage. Thank you, Angela. She's not interested in marriage. I don't want to get married. First, I always want to thank those people writing in because it's not easy to offload emotional baggage. Well, you're not alone. A lot of people have made that decision or are afraid that that might be their story. Either way, it is called a trauma reaction. You are reacting to childhood trauma. Childhood trauma is real. That means you've lived not only, yours goes beyond childhood because the things you saw when you were a child is still going on with your parents. And our parents are our first role models. So when things are not modeled right, it's really challenging to correct it. But you've done one thing right. You recognize that that's where your fear is coming from. So the next thing is to start working on it. The good news is you can work on it. The better news is you can reverse it and reduce the anxiety surrounding marriage. And I'm going to give you some tips. First, healing must take place. If you think you're going to have a toxic marriage, I want you to forget about marriage for 1 second. Let's talk about relationship. How is your relationship with people? Same-sex friendships. How do you manage conflict? Start working on how you manage conflict with your friends. It becomes a rehearsal for how you manage it when you're in a relationship. There's this misnomer, and it causes problems in marriages. People think that there's a different set of skills, there's a different skill set you need to interact with your spouse, different from how you interact with other people. It's a lie. If you have good communication skills with people, you apply it in your marriage, it will work. If you have bad, unhealthy communication with other people and you apply it in your marriage, it will not work. That's why oftentimes people who are toxic, their toxicity does not just stop with their marriage. You will see it in other relationships. So what am I saying? The things you need to work on, I want you to look at it globally, holistically. Let's even move marriage aside. Let's start healing you, because you can only give what you have. I can't preach that enough. Let's start healing you. Let's start rewiring how you talk to people. Let's start rewiring your need to start drama. Let's start rewiring your ability to accept love, to accept kindness and gentility. Let's even start redefining what you see as a good relationship or a good response. Don't look at love or kindness as weakness. Some women say, I don't like when a man talks to me nicely. It's like weak. They want a man that pushes them around. And, so you have to redefine all of those things. Those are toxic reactions to a traumatic experience. And you've had it for so long. And I read where you said your brother is already struggling with it. Your siblings are going to all struggle with it until each person decides to do something different. So, number one step, start healing yourself. Number two, that healing must incorporate reading books about anger management, reading books about healing from trauma. There's a book, I don't know the author, but it's called What Happened to You. So we're a product, the book is basically saying that we're a product of what happened to us, not that we're actually bad people. So we need to go back and trace what happened to us. You trace back that your parents' relationship happened to you. Now you're going to untangle yourself from that, because you're not them. Don't let your parents' bad choices model your own future potential. But you have to play an active role. You need to get a therapist or a counselor, or whether the therapist or counselor is religiously based or not is not as important as the person knowing how to do trauma counseling. There's actually a specialized part of psychology or therapy that is just for trauma. You have to let go of those childhood experiences or those things you saw with your parents. Forgive your parents. Forgiveness is also a tool of healing. Forgive them, because their relationship is toxic, because that's what they know, but you know better. You need to read books, sort after, even do research, see what's out there. But more importantly, you have to commit to healing and changing your path. It is within that healing process that you will start making room for relationships, start making room for marriage. But if you put marriage first, of course it's going to terrify you because of the background you're coming from. But you must cut that umbilical cord. There's something called psychological or psychosocial umbilical cord. When you are doing things because of how you were raised or how you were parented, and even when you know better, you're still referring to my parents. There's only a limit to blaming your parents. You have to come to a point where, as I said, you forgive them because they did the best they knew how. Even now that their relationship remains toxic, they're used to it. Walk away from it, cut yourself. Realize that they brought you into this world. That doesn't mean you have to be an exact replica of them, especially when it comes to replicating things that you know is unhealthy. So you need to let go of that. You need to also start learning actively to work on effective communication skills. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time for that. Maybe I'll dedicate one podcast to just talking about effective communication skills. The skill of listening, the skill of empathy, the skill of speaking from a place of kindness and abundance, not a place of mistrust and suspicion and scarcity. That's what causes hostility. And you need to also work on learning effective conflict resolution skills. First of all, if you're in a relationship, even in a friendship, you too must decide that you want that friendship to work. You want that marriage to work, that you're on the same team. Even if the challenges come from one side, it has come to both of you. So when you sit down, even when one person is hurting, you're hurting because it hurts. But you also know that you want it to work. So when you're on the same team with someone, the conflict is the beginning of the conflict resolution skills. Again, we don't have enough time. There are so many tips to conflict resolution skills, but first conflict you must resolve is the one inside of you. You're fighting with the reality of how you grew up. You must disconnect yourself from that, heal from that, unlearn from that, and relearn. Start learning new skills. It's never too late. Learn to love and trust yourself and know your self-worth. You can only give what you have. If you think you're a good person, you should know that you attract a good person. And if by any chance you attract somebody who's a reflection of your trauma, you work through it. But please, please, marriage is not the key. What is the key is self-healing, having positive relationships with other people, and moving forward. If marriage happens along the way, which it will probably happen, but at least you're having the marital experience from a healed person's perspective. Having said that, that will be all for today. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to Dear IJay on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. I need you to be healthy, be happy, and keep it positive. Until next time, that's all from me. Thank you.